All right, today we have a 1998 BMW 323 IS, and we're going to be replacing the clutch and the flywheel on it. So we're going to go ahead and show you how to do that. It's quite a big job. It is possible to do in your driveway. You just have to, jack it up real good, and it can be a pain, but it's definitely doable. Now, even if you don't have a car like this one, the instructions and the procedures used throughout this vehicle or video will be very similar to just about any rear-wheel drive vehicle. So if you're looking for just a general clutch instruction video, this will help you out a lot. Now, it's not going to be quite as much for the front-wheel drive cars, but if it's a rear-wheel drive vehicle, it'll work just fine. So the first thing we're going to do, we've got the car in neutral and the emergency brake off, because we want to be able to have the back tires spin freely. So we're going to go ahead and lift it up in the air. Now, one thing that may vary, this car, the transmission linkage is completely disconnectable from underneath. Some of the rear-wheel drive cars, you have to go from the inside to disconnect the shifter, but this one is all from underneath. So we're going to go ahead and get it up in the air, and we'll see you under there. All right, so we are underneath the car. Our transmission is up here, which is what we're going to be pulling down. Very first thing we need to do on this particular car is to remove the exhaust. You can see it runs from the length of the car front to back, so it all comes down in one piece. So what we're going to do, we're going to start up front here and disconnect the two flanges coming off the exhaust manifold. You got one here and then one up here. I've already got them soaking in penetrant oil. So then we're going to work our way back. We're also going to have to pull this support bar down, because that's in our way. So we'll pull that down. We're going to disconnect the nuts on this exhaust hanger here. We're going to disconnect this oxygen sensor plug. And we're going to keep working back. And then we're going to disconnect this oxygen sensor plug, which actually, if you follow the wire, comes up to here. So I'll just open up this harness and disconnect that. Working back, these pop off. They just pry off real easy. And then at the very end here, we have two more brackets that are bolted up, which we'll just unbolt. And then that should let our whole exhaust system drop. Next is the wire for the O2 sensor, which comes out. Like that. Okay. Okay, so we've got everything disconnected except we left these middle braces for last. Right now, that's what's holding up the exhaust, are these the middle guys. So with two people, if you have it on a lift like this, we'll go ahead and drop it. I got one guy, helper at the back here, and then I'll be up at the front when I disconnect these, and then the whole thing should just drop straight down and out of the car. So we'll go ahead and do that now. Make sure it's still kind of hot. But let's see. All right. One, two. Okay. Now pull it, let it drop down there, and pull it back towards you some if you can. There we go. Okay, next thing to do, we're going to drop this heat shield out of the way so that we have access to the drive shaft. It's got some 10mm bolts along the way. So I'll just go ahead and take all those out and get this out of our way here. Now we can see the drive shaft. So what we're going to do next is work on getting this drive shaft out of our way. First we have a brace here we're going to remove. And then on the drive shaft, I'll show you a closer detail on the front joint there. On the back one, it's just got four nuts that just come off with just a wrench. So I'll go ahead and get this brace off and see if I can get those 4 nuts off the back off. All right, now because we have the car in neutral and the e-brake off, the drive shaft is free to spin. So to get these nuts off, and there's no way of getting a impact wrench on there, you have to use a regular sock or a regular wrench. So if you just hit it real forcefully, even though it's free to spin, that initial hit acts like an impact wrench and it'll break it free. So I'm going to sit here and my hands can't really take that. There we go. Hit it with a hammer instead. Don't break my hand. All right, next we're going to take off our drive shaft flex joint. I'm going to see if I can get it off with just by disconnecting these 3 outer bolts on this drive shaft here. So it's got 18 millimeter bolts. So I got a wrench on one side, and I'll take this end off with a socket. Okay, if all is well, once I take out this center bearing support brace, this should drop down, and then I should be able to drop the whole drive shaft out. So we'll give it a shot and see what happens. Oh, don't shake it. There we go. Nice. Okay, working on disconnecting the shifter. On this car, it's got one tricky little part up on the top of the shifter, on top of the transmission, I mean, where the shifter rod comes through. You've got this pin, and it's held down by this clip. I've already popped the clip up. All you have to do is you get in there and you kind of pry on it, and this clip pops up right here, and then this pin will pull out. Once you pull that pin out, now the shifter rod is loose, and so that's how you disconnect the shifter from the transmission. There's one more we're going to disconnect. I'll do it right here. This one has just a simple horseshoe clip, and then that pops down and out of your way. So now the shifter is completely disconnected from the transmission. In fact, I could probably I'll leave it up in there for now. Yeah, you can't pull it out because the handle goes up through the car. So, but that's out of our way for now. Okay, next we're going to disconnect the slave cylinder. There's 2 13 millimeter nuts on here that hold this guy on. So we'll just take those loose. And then this should just wiggle right out of here. There she goes. Next is this harness going into the side of it, which all you do is just, it's a regular harness. You just squeeze the metal clip and it's supposed to pry off or pull off there. There it goes. Okay. So I'm going to kind of push all this up out of our way here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just loosen, but not take off the transmission bracket. That'll let the transmission drop down just a little bit. It'll give us a little bit more access to the bolts going around the transmission. So I'm going to take out 2 of these, 1 on each side, and then loosen the other ones. Actually, I'm going to see if I have a longer bolt, then I can drop it, let it drop down farther. All right, so I threaded in slightly longer bolts into here. That way when I take these other ones out, the tranny can drop down just a little bit more. Now you do not want to take this all the way off unless you have a transmission jack under the thing, which at this point I unfortunately do not have access to one right now, so we're going to be going without one. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and start disconnecting the transmission bolts, and I'll deal with any problem ones along the way. We've got these inverted Torx bolts is what they're called. So you do need a special socket to remove them. You'll see they're shaped like an inverted Torx. And they just, like any other socket, they just slip right over. So I'm going to go ahead and start hopefully taking these out. I'm going to do the top ones first, which is the hardest to get to. And the camera's not really going to be able to see up in there very well. But I'll show you my procedure. I have a long, it's actually a made for this purpose extension. It's got a 3/8 on one side. It's got the 3/8 on one side, and then the 1/2 inch on the other. And it's a long one, so hopefully that lets you get up into the wheel well or bell housing area. So I'm going to go ahead and try to get all these disconnected now. Okay. I don't know where you got. Yeah, it's fine. All right, and I'm pretty sure I got all the bolts out. Guess we'll find out in 2 seconds. Yep, it's out. All right, hang on just a second. All right, so we're going to lower the transmission now. We got all the bolts out of the housing. This we're using 2 people. If you have a training jack, you can do it that way too. So at this point, we just wiggle it straight back, and eventually it'll walk off the studs coming off the engine.
You ready?
Yeah. Yep. It's coming. It's coming. Should we undo that bracket more? Or take the... Slide back. Let's hold it up. I don't get it. You want to hold it? I'll grab a pry bar.
Yeah.
There she goes. There she goes. That was light, at least on this end. All right. That's it. Thank you, Brian. All right, so we got our transmission out. Here you can see this is the pressure plate. In between this and the flywheel is the clutch disc itself. Now this car has what's called a dual mass flywheel, and they wear out. You can see all this play going back and forth. It's supposed to be pretty tight. There's springs in there. It's a complex system designed to keep engine vibrations down. On this job, we're actually converting it over to a standard solid flywheel, which has its own benefits. We're going to go ahead and take out all the bolts holding on this pressure plate. Once you do that, this will come off, and the clutch disc will fall out with it. So I'll go ahead and zip those off. Now when you get to the very last one, you want to make sure you hold this thing good, because this pressure plate does weigh quite a bit, and you don't want it falling on you. And that's heavy, or hot, I mean. All right, so there's our pressure plate off. You can see our clutch disc within here. Yeah, you can see there all that play in the flywheel. Definitely no good. That was making some noise too. When the car was idling, you could hear it bouncing around. So next I'm going to go ahead and take off these flywheel bolts. Now on the flywheel, as I go to take the last one out, I'm going to push against it just to keep it up on the motor to keep it from falling. This thing's heavy too. So get that last bolt out of there, and you real carefully walk the flywheel off of here and drop her down. All right, now you can see behind here, this is actually the rear main seal of the car. We're going to be replacing that as well. You can see it's leaking, the oil coming out of there. To replace that seal, you have to drop the whole transmission anyway. So now is the perfect time to do it. All right, so we're going to pull the rear main seal out. Now this is a little trick you can use. What we're going to do, we're going to drill a small hole right in the side of the rear main seal here. And then we're going to be able to thread a screw in there so that we can get a good bite on it to pull it out. So I'm going to start by putting a small hole in there with my drill. Now we're going to take a screw with real deep threads on it and get it started into that hole here, and then we'll have something to bite onto. Beautiful. All right, so here's our old rear main seal that was leaking on us. We got a new one of these. I'm going to just clean up the surface area in there, and then we'll put our new one in. Okay, so we got our the mounting surfaces there for the rear main seal cleaned up. Now this one actually comes with a installing tool, which is designed to help the rear main seal slip right over the end of the crankshaft. What I did is I greased the inner part that rides on the crankshaft and used it's called an anaerobic sealant on the outside. That'll keep any oil leaks from happening. So what we do is just slide this up onto the end of the crankshaft, and then when we push this in, it'll automatically slide over the end of the crankshaft. There's my hammer. Shorter extension. So now what I'm going to do is go around and just real lightly tap in the rear main seal, going all the way around. Just tap it a little bit at a time as you go, and you'll see it just start to fall in place here. All right, we just went all the way around until it was flush there with the crank, a little bit more up there. That's where I flushed with the end of the block, but that is in. All right, so that's how you change the rear seal. Okay. Now, unfortunately, we didn't catch it on video, but we pulled out our old pilot bearing out of the center of the crankshaft here. To do that, we just used a bolt and stuck it in there, and then we were able to just knock it out, basically. But now we have our new pilot bearing. We're going to go ahead and install. Just set it up there, and it should just kind of fall part way in. And then we'll just tap it in real lightly with a hammer. Okay, so our new pilot bearing's in there. So our next step is going to be to go ahead and put our new flywheel on. I'll show you our kit that we got. Okay, here's our kit. We got this from Auto Parts Direct to You. What it is, it's a flywheel, or it's a clutch and solid flywheel conversion kit. You can see here the new pressure plate, the brand new clutch disc, and then down there is the solid flywheel. See, it no longer has that dual mass thing like the one that I showed you that was going bad. It also comes with the clutch alignment tool, which just about any clutch kit should come with that, and the new bolts for the flywheel and the pressure plate. And the last thing it has, a little dusty, is a new throwout bearing. And we'll show you how to change that too. So that's our kit. So we'll go ahead and get the flywheel out of here. Okay, now if you look on the back of the crankshaft, you'll see a one hole that sticks out further than the others. On the back of the flywheel, there's a hole that matches that. I don't know if you can see that right there. That one hole is a little bit bigger diameter than the other ones. That hole is what lines up with that pin thing up there on the crankshaft. So when we go to put this up, I'll be real careful with these. These things are heavy. You do not want to drop it. Technically, I should be wearing steel toe boots because I don't want to break my toe, but I'm not, so I just have to be careful. So what we do is line up that hole with that there, just like so. And we'll start a bolt. And these bolts again came with the kit. So, all right, so now we'll go ahead and put all the bolts in there. Now you can see these bolts also include a Loctite already on them. That keeps them from ever backing out, which is good. So just put them on with that pink stuff still on the bolt. All right, now I'm going to go around, and I'm not going to tighten them with my impact, but I'm just going to go around and snug them all down with my impact wrench, and I'm not going to torque them though. Okay, so they're all snug. Our next step, and this is important, is we're going to torque them to the correct specs. The kit tells me what torque to use, so I got to go look that up again. Okay, so I have set up here just a little improvised method of holding the crankshaft from spinning while I go to torque the bolts down. You know, they make special fancy tools that grip onto the teeth and do all this stuff, but if you just have a bar and you put a couple of extra bolts into the flywheel like that, that gives you a good way to hold the crankshaft. So my helper here is going to hold the bar while I torque these. Now this specific kit calls for 105 Newton meters on these bolts, which is, all right, so it calls for 105 Newton meters, which is about 75 foot-pounds or 78, somewhere in that range. So, and what we're going to do, we're going to go in a star pattern. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way around. Okay, so our flywheel is torqued in place. What we do next is to, before we install the clutch disc, I'm going to clean this flywheel mounting surface real well. I'm just going to use some brake cleaner and get that real clean. You don't want any oil on this surface at all, or you'll get a clutch chatter, which you don't want. It's a headache. Okay, what we do next is install the clutch disc. Now when you're working with this, you do not want to touch the friction surface at all. So just be careful not to touch it. What we need is our clutch alignment tool. I'm going to go ahead and slide that through the clutch disc like this. That gives me something to hold on to. Now you'll see they're always stamped somewhere on there. Sometimes it's on this surface, sometimes it's here. It'll say whether or not one of the ends goes towards the motor or the transmission. Right here, you can see it says gearbox side. So all that means is that this faces out towards the transmission. So the way this works, with that tool in there, this end will go right into the pilot bearing. So we line it up like so. Oh, you know what? It's not going to stay in on its own. That'll be all right. Let's see. Yeah. There, that's centered. All right, so before I do that, I'm going to have to get the pressure plate ready. All right, so the pressure plate, we have to do the same thing. We have to clean off. There's a little bit of oil residue on here just to prevent it from rusting when packaged and shipping. So we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to clean it off real well. You're going to use some brake clean and a clean rag or shop towel. And just give it a real good cleaning to get all that film off of there. Because again, you do not want any oil to touch the clutch material at all. All right, so that's clean. Now we can start this thing, this guy. This is gonna need 10 hands at once. All right, so what I'll do first is put our clutch disc up there, and then we're gonna take our pressure plate. Can you hold that? Thanks. Just got to turn it right. Our pressure plate has pinholes in it, which line up right there. So I'm just going to get one of those lined up. Watch your hand, okay? There we go. All right, so see how the pinholes are all lined up there. Now I'm just going to kind of center the clutch disc in here. You know, you want it real centered. It makes putting the transmission in a lot easier. And I'm going to start one of these bolts. Actually, I'll start one of the upper bolts. All right. Make sure she seems good and centered. All right, now I'll go ahead and put the rest of the bolts in. Okay, now the pressure plate bolts get torqued to 25 foot-pounds on this one. It's either 18 foot-pounds or 25 depending on the grade of bolts. This one has the grade 10 bolts with the kit, so it's the 25. Now what I'm going to do before I even torque it, I'm just going to go around and slowly snug up these bolts, a little bit at a time in a crisscross pattern. Reason for that, as this pressure plate sits down, you need it to be even, so the whole thing gets pulled in all at once. That's also important on keeping the clutch noise and chatter to a minimum. You'll see as I tighten it, you'll see these fingers start to pull in. Well, maybe you won't see it on camera, but they are. Okay, and now that they're all flushed, I can go ahead and torque them to the 25 foot-pounds. If you have an inch, my torque wrench is an inch meter. I'm sorry, an inch-pound torque wrench. The 25 comes out to be 300 inch-pounds. So that's what I've got it set to. Now you want to do this also in a crisscross pattern, and I'm going to see if I can do it without the engine spinning over. There we go. That's not very much torque, is it? Uh-oh. Really? Okay, this thing's a piece of crap. Dang it. So I'm going to go ahead and re-torque these because I don't trust my inch-pound foot wrench or torque wrench that broke on me. So I'll just go around in a crisscross pattern and make sure they're all torqued to 25 foot-pounds. All right, so that is it for the pressure plate torque. At this point, you can pull out your alignment tool because that clutch disc isn't going anywhere. So now we're almost ready to put the transmission up. We just have to do a few things on the transmission itself, such as replacing the throwout bearing. So we'll switch over and switch over to the transmission here. Okay, so now what you're looking at is the inside of the transmission bell housing. This here is our throwout bearing. The clutch kit, of course, came with a new one. So we'll take that and discard it. These are pretty common to fail. They'll make a high screeching noise when you push the clutch in when they go bad. And then we're going to pull off the clutch fork here. If I can figure out how. There we go. This is your clutch fork. All it does, one end rides on this, there's a ball pivot in here, and the other end is what gets pushed on by the slave cylinder when you push the pedal in. So this moves like this when you push the clutch pedal, which then pushes the throwout bearing forward, which then pushes on the pressure plate and releases your clutch. So that's how it works. But we want this off because we need to lubricate this shaft, clean and lubricate that. It actually wouldn't hurt to replace that, but I don't have one on hand, so. On these cars, these are kind of a notorious part to wear out. If you were to feel it, you can feel it's got grooves all over it, but it should be fine. It's not severe. It's just, it is noticeable, but not bad. So we're going to get that cleaned up, and we're going to get our ball pivot cleaned up. All right, right now I'm putting on some grease that's included with the clutch kit. This is made for the splines on the input shaft of the transmission. And you want to just put it on real lightly. You want to, you want it to be well lubricated, but you don't want globs on there because you do not want this stuff coming off and getting flung onto the clutch disc itself. So I'm just going around putting a real thin layer on each of these splines so that the clutch disc will slide freely on this shaft when you push the pedal in and out. Now for this shaft which holds the throwout bearing, I'm going to put a layer of anti-seize lubricant on this. That will just ensure that our new throwout bearing slides freely on this old shaft here. Now this part doesn't rotate, so you don't have to be as careful with the amount that you put on there because it's not going to fling off. I'm also going to put a little dab on the ball pivot here and on the clutch fork itself. I'm going to put a little dab in each of these spots where the pivots are. That just ensures good smooth engagement of the clutch. So now what we'll do is slide our clutch fork back over. And put our new throwout bearing on there. Now on the throwout bearing, you want a little bit of lubricant on these spots where they touch the clutch fork, because that'll be moving as well. So I'm going to put just a little blob on there, and a little blob on there, and a little bit on the clutch fork itself. Okay, now we'll slide our new throwout bearing back into place, and that just sits like that. So now you'll see this will be spinning on the pressure plate, and then when you push the clutch in, it'll press against the pressure plate, which then releases your clutch. And that's all we have to do as far as prepping the transmission. At this point, we're ready to put it back up in the car. Okay, now we're going to attempt to get the transmission back on. We're using two people. We're just going to lift it up in place and then wiggle it on, and hope that it all falls into place. So we'll see what happens. So now, do you see the shaft and where it's supposed to go? Oh, you know what? I think we're going to need Brian. Oh, wait. Oh, look at that. All right, I got it from here. Holy shit. It just fell into place. No way. Oh, pardon my language, any viewers who are watching. All right, transmission fell in. They don't usually go that easy. All right, it's good for now. I'm gonna have to put those longer bolts back in actually to drop it. Let me get one started. All right, so we have our transmission just resting in place right now. What I have to do is get a couple bolts started. And then make sure that the transmission seats fully up against the motor, which it should. It's all lined up, so. All right, so I've got a few of the transmission bolts started and hand tightened. Everything seats up just fine against the motor. So next I got to put the starter bolts in. On this particular car, the starter bolts go from the back of the transmission forward, and the starter is way up here. You can't really see it. But we just got to kind of reach up here and get these guys started. And I got to kind of hold the starter lined up at the same time. So hopefully this will go fairly decent. Let's see. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and reconnect our shifter linkage. Can you see it? So our shifter, this shift rod piece, I don't know what you really technically call it, but that thing goes through there, and then this clip just snaps back down to lock it in place. And then this part, which is our actual shifter linkage part, I can get this clip back off of here. Okay, that guy goes through there. Oops. Yeah. Like so. And this clip snaps on like that. Okay. Put it back in neutral. That spins free. Now you can see it doesn't spin free when the car is in gear, because the clutch is holding it now. So you know it's at least grabbing. And then when it's in neutral, it does spin free. All right, so before I bolt that back up, I'm going to go ahead and reattach our slave cylinder for the clutch. And I'm going to add a little bit of, actually no, it's got some in there. I was going to add some more grease on there, but I have it on the end of the clutch fork already. So now, just slide this back in place here. Okay, slave cylinder's in and tight. We'll hook up our backup sensor light harness. All right. All right, now we can go ahead and bolt up our transmission mount again. Let's see. Yeah, we'll do it in that order. Pull out our long bolts that we use to let the transmission hang. And put the stock ones back in. Alright, so what we're going to do is go ahead and just tighten down these bolts. And then our next step is going to be to put the drive shaft on. Okay, so now we're going to put our drive shaft in. I'm going to start with the back end. I'm going to go ahead and line these up with the differential. And then I'll pop the front end into the flex joint. And then follow it up by putting our carrier bolts back up. So there's the rear and the front and the carrier. Now before I tighten that down, I want to make sure I have this thing all seated in here properly. No, I'm not. What's wrong? Oh, this is upside down. Okay, yeah, you want to make sure this bracket's turned the right way. Yeah, that looks better. Or you'll get what happened. Yeah. Thanks to my camera guy for pointing that out. Thank you, Josh. There. That fits a little better. So now I'll get the 4 bolts going for the flex joint. Or 3 bolts, really. This way. 1, 2, 3. And our 3 nuts on the back of that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and reinstall our 4 nuts on the drive shaft back here. And you can't really get a torque wrench in there because the only thing you can get on there is a regular wrench. So I'm just going to go ahead and tighten her down again. All right, so our drive shaft's back up. All we got left now is the heat shield followed by the exhaust. Okay, so I put the heat shield up and then realized I forgot to put this bracket on first. So heat shield's back down. And now I'm going to put this bracket back on. Uh-oh. Does it go like that or like this? Huh. It goes like this. I'll be able to tell you in just a second. There's the heat shield. And I bet you they had it on backwards last time, and that's why they didn't have the bolts in there. The heat shield, huh? I know. I want to see if I have this lined up right. Line up like that. Yep, okay, so it goes like that. Okay, so now we're going to hang the exhaust. We're going to do just like we did when we took it out. We're going to have two people carry the whole thing in. I've got new gaskets up here on the outlets for the exhaust manifolds. And then we're just going to kind of line it all up and get it hanging from these two rubber hangers, and then I'll bolt it all up. So we're going to go ahead and carry that in now. All right, hang on. Let me get this front lined up first, Josh. Hang on just a second. Let me get these. All right. There we go. And yeah, there you go. Right, hang on. Oh God. There we go. Yeah. Oh no. Oh no. I need a nut. All right, push like forward on it too at the same time. It should stay. Just one is all I need. Okay. So now, I go ahead and bring her up. And, you alright? What's going on here? Oh, this has to go. Oh, look at that. That's loose. Okay, now it should go up. Not wanting to go? Hang on. Oh, hang on. Let's see. There we go. All right. There we go. Come on. There we go. Yeah, there's one. Two. All right. That's fun. Okay. All right, so we got our exhaust hanging. Nothing's tight yet. I'm just going to go ahead and get the nuts all started on the exhaust pipes here. All right, so now we're putting our washers and nuts on this last exhaust hanger here. Now I think all we have to do now is rehook our O2 sensor wires. This guy kind of snakes up through here. And it This side plugs up through here, and they plug together. Let's see, it only goes one way, looks like that. Okay. And then this thing snaps into its holder. And I'll tie that wire up out of the way. But first, this guy comes up. I'll plug it in first. Okay. And that plugs in there. And this wire follows this little path here. And this thing somehow quickly. Figure that out in a minute. This guy comes back up like this. Like that right there. Oh, that's missing part of it. That's what's going on. Oh, there it is. It's got a little groove up here. In the heat shield. There she goes. Right in there. And then the wire goes like that. Okay. And then this guy clips into there, and this one's missing its clip. So I'm just going to have to zip tie it out of the way. Thank you, sir. I might need a second one. Whoa, thunder.
Look like thunder.
No, it doesn't. It's sunny and bright. It's gonna be a bright sunshiny day. Huh?
Good.
Yeah, that'll do it. Thanks. Well, that is it. Now we just have to try it and make sure it works. So we're going to go ahead and drop it down, and I'm going to clean myself up a little bit, and we'll see if it's good. Crossing fingers. All right, so car's back on the ground. We got everything all put back together. That is how you replace the clutch in a BMW 3 Series. It's going to be about the same for all the BMWs, really. It's also going to be almost identical for just about any rear-wheel drive car. You know, there's various little things here and there that'll be different, but you know, you can always follow the basic procedures. So the only thing I have left to do is actually test it, which I haven't even tried yet. So crossing our fingers, we're going to see. Should be good. Okay, it goes into gear, which is good. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's got a nice Nice solid bite to it. Yeah, we're good. All right, so the job is complete. We thank you for watching. Remember, check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/apdty. Also, subscribe to us here on YouTube. We're always putting out new videos on different kinds of cars, and you'll hopefully learn a lot by watching us. And remember, just give us a call if you're ever looking for any parts. So thank you for watching. Take care.